welcome back once again. We now have our next video in the series. This is advanced rotations now. We've gone through basic. We know our basic best and worst case scenario rotations. Now we're going to be talking about our advanced section, right? What do we do under a higher level of ideas? And the first one I want to start off with is what I left you with as a little tidbit of information from the previous video. And that's going to be an over center swap or a 1-3 swap. And this is going to be a advanced rotation, or it's going to be classified that way because it's going to have what I call a compound movement or a compound rotation, right? Compound. And so we're going to start off with the idea of the ball crossing over center. And this one's easier to understand from a defensive point of view. So we're going to imagine we're space station, and let's say Arsenal pushed up, right? Engage the ball, he's extension, and the ball gets crossed over on its own or in some way off to the other side, right? Boom, boom. And let's say we had perfect positioning too in our team, or ideal positioning, right? We had an extension or second man somewhere in the field, in the range, somewhere available. We also had our third man on back post, and when this ball crosses over, it goes over the center line, hence the name over center. Our third man then steps in and engages that ball as first. And our second man is seeing that, going from the knowledge we had from the previous video, comes back out and goes to 3. And now we just have our worst case scenario. Simple as that, right? It starts from a worst case scenario. And you could even end this rotation right here. But in that mindset, if you bring this guy in as first mate's taking it up the wall, the chance of getting a pass out to this guy when this guy's low boost at a high ball is very low. It's a very low % chance that actually succeeds. It's also very difficult mechanically, especially when chasing it into the wall. On the other side of it, if he was able to sweep in on the ball that was right here and make a cross pass, we could utilize his extension very well because it's very easy to get a ball that's shootable for him there. But in the same way, in this case, we don't have that. We're chasing it into the left wall here. This is the idea of how we get a compound rotation. We want to get a second man that's more playable for our new first man, and that's going to be somewhere in this zone here, right? This is our passable range. This is where we're very comfortable. Maybe even midfield if you want, but this is too far. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and redraw our current positions, right? We start with that worst case scenario, much like we usually do, and I'm going to go ahead and remember those by drawing our, don't want to draw worst case, I want to draw a 1-3 swap, right? Or over center swap. I'm going to have 1-2 extension because he made the challenge, 2 steps back into net, and 3 steps into 1, right? This is our starting rotation positions. And so we have 1, we have an extension, and we have 3, a really wide split on our second man right now. So the next step is who's next closest to getting to this first man's possession here, right? And that would be our third man. He already was driving through the momentum this way, and he can easily drive up to this second man right here, pretty available. And so we're going to be bubbling over this center line here to get into that second man. But first, he needs to go ahead and make sure he actually fulfills this third role in case the opponents had a strong third man that engages and has a shot on net right here. Because if he steps out too early or comes in too aggressive, this ball gets hit behind him for a double tap, and that's a free goal for the opponents. Because at this point now, this guy's on recovery time. His momentum's heading this way. He hasn't had enough time to land, recover, turn back around, and have enough boost to defend the backboard. It's not going to happen. So you have to make sure that this person here that went 2 to 3 starting is able to make his way back up to 2 after defending the net first. Once we've identified the ball on the left side here is free or it's in possession, right? It doesn't have to be free completely, but as long as we know that we have advantage or possession of it, it's in possession, we're just going to write P for that, or they don't really have a good challenge on us, then we could set them out as 2, and we go through the compound rotation now. So 3 then makes his way up. Extension here recovers, steps back, and makes his way back to 3. That's the end of it. It's 2 makes his way to 3, then goes back to 2. 3 goes to 1, continues to hold ball as 1, and extension, or 1 goes to extension, then back out to 3. And we have a long 1 to 3, and then 3 goes all the way back to 1, and there's our 1-3 swap right there. And so that's basically what is a simpler version of what happens with Envy here on offense. Atomic makes the shot so on, right? Here's our extension. Here is our guy coming out to third from the previous extension as the ball's going to worst case scenario, right? We start with this worst case scenario. And then because the ball's going to get crossed over, right? We can see the save is obviously going to happen on this side of the field in this zone. We're going to bring in our 3 to 1, right? Here's our extension. And then here's Turbo Pulsa landing as extension basically. And more or less, they bring 3 to 1, and they bring our extension all the way out immediately. So that way we can peak Turbo Pulsa and keep them long term, right? And this is more or less that 2-3 second half of this. So if we explain this again with the defensive side of things, the big thing that really changed that made this an over center swap was our 3 pushes into 2 and is available for the next play. Turbo Pulsa here, even though he made the shot, was our 3, and now he's going to hold this 2. He's going to cut off this midfield and be available. And now that Sypical's making the clear, so he's cutting off this midfield, being available for Mist to dunk or in case this drops, now we have Atomic back out for our 3, and we're available for that immediate over center swap. We didn't try to bring Atomic back in as extension from the far side, right? And that's the big thing that we're looking at right here. We didn't try to bring him in to cut this off. We just let Turbopulsa did it, and we brought him all the way back out instead. And it's much more efficient because Turbopulsa wouldn't be back in the same position Atomic would be. So the second rotation that we're going to be talking about now for our 1-3 swaps is going to be 1, 2, and 3 setup. This is on offense primarily. And let's say the ball, you try to make a pass to your second, but it gets 50'd or intercepted on you, and it freezes up right behind you in this zone right here. If they have their first man pushing through and their second man pushing through, the lines between these guys to the blue zone are much shorter than the line from your pink or your third man to the zone as well. So he's definitely getting dusted. He's going to get beat to this ball if it freezes up there. So then, we can't treat this as a worst case scenario. We have to treat it as something else. And in this one, this is going to be another 1-3 swap, but we're going to start this as a best case scenario instead on offense. So our 2 instead is going to drop in, ball drops in, so our 2 is going to go ahead and step across this way or step in this way. Both can be usable. If we take the line on the left here, the left line versus the right line, it's possible for him to back pass this direct to 3, and 3 then can become 1 immediately. And we've now forced a worst case scenario. We finish the play. Or if it comes in this way, you'll make the opponents pass it back for you by cutting it off and making them flick over you. Otherwise, you get the possession anyway into the left wall and can pass up to your extension this way. So you're making them throw away this ball. And then now, you now have your third coming in as 1 anyway, and he engages this ball as 1. We now have this opportunity. If you've seen popular clips of me, I call this babysitting, right? Your 2 is babysitting your 3 for this play because he's making sure that he gets a free possession no matter what. Much like if you have to babysit somebody, you make sure they don't fall down the stairs, you make sure they don't tumble, you make the drop, you make their life as easy as possible. So in this case here, 2 is basically babysitting, cutting back in, engaging this ball, and forcing it back to 3 here. And by doing that, he's going to have momentum heading either off to the side casually, they can turn back into a rotation back, or heading straight back immediately, and he's going to become the new 3. And while he was engaging that ball or making the back pass, he was pressuring or playing the ball in a way, and so he became 1 temporarily. And so this rotation, even though it starts as a best case scenario, so 1 who made the initial challenge falls into extension, our 2 steps in as 1 to make that force happen, our 1 stays extension during this time, and our 3 gets back pass to, right? The back pass gets thrown back to him by the opponents or by yourself, and he becomes 1. And now our 2 then makes their way to 3, or actually, sorry, in the beginning of it starts as a worst case scenario, so 3 stays 3, then makes his way to 1, but 2 to 1 to 3, and then 3 stays 3, and then becomes 1 from the back pass, and now we end and start with 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we have a 1-3 swap, and a 3-1 swap, so it's a 1-3 swap in total, right? It's thought of in the same way, but for offensive plays. And we have a bit of an example of that. It's a little sketchy when we watch Envy do it here in a bit. So this one here is basically the same idea. We have Atomic here as our extension, or our 2 of the play, as we've learned. It's basically the same role. Turbopulsa pushing in is 1, and Mist here is our 3. The line between Sypical or even Arsenal and this ball between Mist is massive, right? And so now we have Atomic here stepping in as 1 temporarily to shadow or control this ball to make it throw away to Mist, or if they can punish them for it, he's going to engage this as a solo play himself. And so with this, he could have passed this back to Mist basically for free for Mist to take over. Or the same way, he's going to make them do it, because by keeping pressure on their side of the field, keep them a little better. And overall, what he decided to do here is bump out Arsenal to create some room. And as Sypical comes in to dive it, they reposition Mist deeper as 3rd, right? So 3 stays 3, 2 steps into 1, or Atomic here steps in as 1, and Turbopulsa stays extension from 1. As this breaks down and gets cleared, bang bang, Mist is now engaging for a much better challenge against Sypical. Ideally, Atomic would have forced a free ball, but in the same way here, Atomic went straight back to 3 and was back in net ready in case Sypical got over Mist. The motion here was very smooth. We had a 1 to 3, we had a 3 to 1, and then now we have Turbopulsa is still an extension right now, still out of the play. He's going for a bump on Reddles a little bit. He's locked up somewhere outside of it. Ideally, I think Atomic would have been more neutral facing over here and covering the wider range, but at the end of the day, he still is covering net to a degree. And then comes back in, they just continue the rotation as normal. Mist made the challenge, 1 down to extension, and then now it's a standard worst case scenario. Extension, back out to 3, and it fulfills back into rotation just fine, like normal. With that said and done, that is the other advanced rotation that we're going over today. I hope you learned it. It gets a bit complicated with that, and there's other plays that we can get into a deeper analysis with future videos and so on, but for the most part, that is the foundation of most rotations in Rocket League, and that more or less fills you if you're starting a team, if you're in 6-mans and you're in solo queue, if you're trying to get really, really good, if you understand these rules of rotation and you follow them with good awareness, or you use these with your team, you'll find yourselves in positions where you never not have a third, or where you always have someone available. And that's really big. That's huge when it comes down to controlling the field or having opportunities for the counterattack. Have a great one, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye. If you're looking for more information on Rocket League strategy, I will be making more videos on this learning series, so like and subscribe to get updates on these videos. Besides that, I do free coaching on Twitch, and if you'd like to partake in that, go ahead and join my Discord below, and check out my free analysis series here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day.